Welcome to Contractor Cuts, where we cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing a successful contracting company.
Welcome back to Contractor Cuts. My name is Clark Turner.
I'm Jared Flo.
Thank you guys for joining us again. So this week we are talking about if we could start over and start a new construction company, what mistakes would we avoid now that we have the hindsight of looking back to how we did it wrong? So Jared,
If we knew then what we know now.
if we knew then, if I was hitting reset, how would it look differently being set up today versus when I did it in 2006, right? So let's run through it. There are 5 main things that we categorize as to areas that we would change how we made decisions.
Right.
The very first one is the structure, how we structure the company. And so I started the company about 6 years before Jared ever came on. And it's funny because there's a couple different ways we've talked through structuring a construction company, and I've done them both because I started out as a 50-50 partner. Really, I've done all 3 of them.
I was
a 50-50 partner with someone else, and I structured it, and there was one structure. A few years into it, I bought him out, and so I was 100% owner, which is obviously a very simplistic structure.
Yeah.
And then I brought you on and gave this equity salary combo, trying to bring in the first hire, giving them some skin in the game.
Right.
And so we've made mistakes in all 3 areas. So the first section of setting up your structure, here's what I would have changed.
Yeah.
All right, so on the 50-50, when me and my original business partner started the company.
Trusted friend, conversations.
Trusted friend. He'd been in business. He'd run some businesses before, and I was, a year or 2 out of college and didn't know what I was doing.
You were green into it, and he had a lot more experience.
Exactly. I'd worked for another construction company as a project manager, so I knew how to run crews and get houses done, but I didn't know the business side. So we partnered up. I'm not going to give the whole backstory. We've covered it before, but one of the regrets, what I would have done differently, is I would have spelled out all the things that if this went wrong, how we would handle it.
Right.
Right. There was no. I don't even know if we had an operating agreement. I mean, we probably, just took a carbon copy of whatever we could find as a standard operating agreement and didn't create our own. But I got into it thinking, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I didn't understand or know what could go wrong, right? I'm glass half full, that's great. No, let's go. Let's run.
Yeah.
Let's make some money. You got the houses. I got the ability to get them renovated. He was a wholesaler and a home flipper. So he needed someone to renovate his houses. I needed a steady income of houses and someone who knew business. And so it was a good partnership in that term. So we started out. He was bringing in the houses. I was doing the renovations. Everything's great. A number of years in, he started doing a lot of houses, like 100 houses a year type flipper. And so it made most sense financially for him to in-house it, right? And so he started in-housing underneath himself, running his own jobs, which was the job that he was supposed to do as a 50% owner.
Right.
And so long story short, not to go into the depths of it, I talked to him about it. We ended up working out something where I bought him out. But it could have easily gone the other way where he was like, tough. Like I put my time in for the first year or 2 and this is what it is. And I'm going to run renovations outside of this. There's no, it's not a breaking or non-compete because I'm not selling renovations. And I'm doing my own.
But
right?
because there wasn't a document that clearly spelled out the expectations of both sides, what was allowable, what wasn't allowable, if there was a need for an exit, how did that look? How would that transaction happen?
Yep.
None of that stuff was made.
Correct.
And so at the time it became more difficult, or like it was frustrating. And I think the interesting thing about that is like, it seems like common sense that you would have. Of course, I would get a document like that. Yep. On one side of it, looking in, it seems like common sense.
Yeah.
But when you're in it and you're sitting across the table from somebody, you're dreaming about how this partnership is going to work really well together, and this is going to be great, and we're going to make some money together, and of course you're going to do that, and I'm going to do this, and it's easy to just like, oh yeah, we trust each other.
Well,
right?
and I had $0 in my bank.
Yeah.
I had no money. I was working a job. I think I was getting paid like $38,000 a year as a project manager for this other company. It was my first year out of college, and so I actually moved away from Atlanta. I was coming back to Atlanta to start this, and I had nothing to lose, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, I don't care if he said 80-20. It doesn't matter. 20% of something that I don't have now is great, right? I but it was 50-50, which to me, I'm like, well, that's better than nothing. And I couldn't do this without him. So here we go. Let's go ahead and do it. As opposed to thinking through, all right, if this goes bad, this is my 100% life. This is a side project for him.
Right.
So if this goes bad, I am out my entire livelihood.
Yeah.
He's
out a failed venture.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot more risk on my side in terms of how it would affect my life if something went wrong.
Right.
But I could have been screwed a lot more than what ended up happening.
Yeah.
And I left myself exposed to that. But all in all, I definitely would have spent more time, more effort, more even money hiring someone to come help me build out a better operating agreement and understanding.
Yeah.
And not to get too much into it, the second I bought him out, I had it myself. A few years later, brought you on. And I think one of those regrets that we've talked through on that is we set up compensation structure based on the trajectory that we were going, right? And in the beginning, when you're a 1 to 2 man show, that trajectory you can get real steep, right? I honestly, when I brought you on, I think I was making the same amount monthly that it was the most I'd ever made,
right?
Almost to the point that it was like 6 months of salary from previous years. Like I was making a ton of money because I landed some large clients. I was doing like 30 houses in a month by myself.
Right.
And so it was like, well, if I can do 30 houses, 2 people could do 60, 3 people could do 90, 4 people could do 120.
Right.
And it was like this exponential, we can just keep doubling every single time that we hired.
Well, and we set our agreement up on the potential opportunity of where this thing was obviously going to go.
Yep.
Right. And if we got there, it would have been really beneficial for both of us.
Yep.
In hindsight, I think the better place to go when you're in that spot is look at what's the worst case scenario. Maybe taking, if the company goes under off, I think that's still a part of it.
Yeah.
But worst case scenario, we're still in the same place. We haven't grown. We haven't developed. We're just a little further down the road. 4 or 5 years from now, is everybody still happy with this agreement at that spot?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I think that's where we ended up getting to, that we got to that spot and we had growth and we had some other things, but we also had a lot of stumbles that cost a lot of money, that it threw our pay out of balance, where I needed more money and was unhappy where I was. You needed more money, but we didn't have the money to be able to, and it became super complicated, and it just didn't. That structure just didn't work out.
Yeah. Well, and I remember I brought you 2 offers. One was straight salary, and one was a lower salary with a percentage of ownership. And that one obviously was more appealing, but also was way more risky. And if the trajectory continued, which was an impossible angle upward,
right?
On the
it has to bell curve at some point.
Yes, it's going to level out a little bit at some point. When you have growth. So that offer made the most sense if we continued that trajectory, and neither one of us stood back and thought, well, it's kind of unrealistic to think that we're going to grow 30 renovations per month, year over year, or month over month at that time. Right. So
we did for a while.
Yeah, we did, and we grew some. But when you start hiring, when you start bringing on people, you start lowering the ability to complete the same level of jobs. So
I don't know if you guys know this, but when you bring on overhead, it means the owners can't take as much money.
It's all that extra started being spent on rent and office managers and all that. So it went from me making a ton of money myself when I'm a one-man show living out of my truck or working out of my truck to now we need an office and we need a second set of computers and so this and that. And so it's just we would have structured it to where it works really well today, and small success makes you very happy.
Right.
As opposed to when we get there in 5 to 10 years, you're going to be happy.
Right.
And so we ended up, full disclosure, we ended up renegotiating that a few years in because it was like, okay, we set it up with this understanding, and it turns out that we didn't know what business was like once you started running and growing it, right? And so again, luckily we've got a great relationship where we can have those conversations, but you've got to set up your structure to where if that guy turns crazy, I can still survive, right? And so that's what we would have done differently when setting up.
Yeah,
so
you just knew you were hiring crazy, so it was fine.
Yes, for sure. So structure is the first one. Second one that we would have done differently, financials. Right. So how would we have done our finances differently? That we could do about 4 podcasts on this, and so we're going to stay high 30,000 foot view. But I would pinpoint the main thing with finances is we always thought, it takes money. You got to spend money to make money, right? And so we always were like, okay, if we can take on 10 more houses, we can make X amount of more dollars. 10 more renovations a month, we'll have X amount more dollars.
Well, and if you got to spend money to make money, and there's an opportunity to make more money, but we don't have any more money to spend, we chose, let's get a loan. Yeah.
Well, and the ugliest thing to say about construction, I don't like saying this out loud, but it's true. It has lower profits than most other. It's higher than like restaurants and a couple other industries, but for the majority of any industry, it is very low profit. And so we've realized you can choose to be in one of 2 modes as a company, as a GC. You could be taking money and putting it in your pocket. You can be gathering cash.
Right.
Or you can be growing. You can't do both those at the same time very well. You can't say, okay, hey, I'm going to take an extra $80,000 a year next year, but also we're going to expand to a second city. Because expanding takes a ton of money. Hiring new people take a ton of money. Getting a new office, doing so many things to grow takes a ton of money.
Taking on new clients who have net 30, net 60-day terms requires a lot of money.
So we were increasing our income and trying to hire and taking on new companies that had longer terms for paying us. And so we got to a spot where it's like, well, we need, if we can have couple $100,000 of a loan, I can turn that into $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 over the next 2 years of business because I can keep flipping that. And so we went and got loans.
And we had the insight at the time that we're going to take these loans. Those loans are going to help us take on this client that has X net terms. And when that money comes back, that money is going to go back to pay back that loan. And then the profits after the profits that come off of it, we're making a little bit of money.
That was the thought.
That was the thought. And we tried to do that. The problem came in is that the money would come in. We'd have those companies, if it's 30, 45 days, they'd send us a fat check, $50, $60, $70, $100,000, right? And then there's, well, if we take this money and roll it into that new thing, we can double down and make more money off of it, right? Meantime, the loan was getting bigger and deeper and deeper and deeper in the background.
I ran some numbers on the people we coach, all the companies we've coached. I was looking at all the companies we've coached that do over $1 million a year in revenue. Of those people, 80% of those have what I call significant loan payments, significant monthly loan payments, thousands a month in loan repayments from previous loans.
Tens of thousands.
Yes, to get you to that spot. So of those 80% of people that have those, 80% of our successful contractors that are still paying that, the average percentage of their profit that goes to that payment, 8.5%. 8.5% of your profit is going to pay debts from last year, the year before, for whenever you took that loan. So you think about it. But that doesn't include my paycheck. That doesn't include the rent. That doesn't include overhead. That doesn't include the gas. It doesn't include new hires. It doesn't include any of that. It's straight out of the initial money that I make off my job, the 25, 30% that I'm making.
After I've paid my labor and material to get the work done.
Then I pay
whatever money's left
8.5% to the bank for previous decisions. That's gigantic, and that is a noose around companies' necks. So it's one of those things that you look at and you say, that is a sizable regret that we have. I mean, right now, to this day, we are paying thousands of dollars for a loan that we took and spent in 2016, right? We're, 7 years beyond that almost? And so 7 years later, we are still paying thousands a month for the bad decisions we made in 2016. And it was a good decision at the time, but we're still repaying it. Because
I promise, it doesn't go away quickly.
Yes.
It's just one tick at a time. One tick at a time.
It disappears quickly, but it doesn't pay back quickly.
That's right.
And so I think
you think about that, if that wasn't the case, the amount of money that at 8.5%, that's a project manager and a head of department paycheck monthly. Right? Like that's people you can't hire to grow and develop your business because it's going out to a loan.
Right? Well, and our biggest mistake when we took that loan, and why we hate telling companies to take loans, there is a very useful part in construction to having money lent to you to be able to continue growth. Right. We believe in that, and we're for that. But it is so important to watch how you take that money and how you spend, because before we had that loan, we ran it we tightened our belt in bad times. I lowered my paycheck as the owner at times. There was times where it was like, well, we don't know how we're going to come up with the money. We got to figure this out. And so we'd have to figure it out.
It changes the mindset.
All of a sudden I got this loan for $300,000 sitting in the background that's just free money sitting in the bank. And I'm like, well, we'll make it up next month. We shouldn't cut any expenses. Let's keep going.
Right.
And so a little bit of that loan goes to paying overhead. A little bit of that loan goes to when before we had the loan, we'd tighten our belt, we'd spend less, we'd make better decisions. Maybe we're not going to go out and buy those new trucks that we want. Maybe we're not going to do that.
Right.
But we've got this padding to where we can spend a little bit more freely. We were like the U.S. government, right? We were whatever I want, I'm going to spend on, and we'll figure out how to get the money later.
Right.
So that was one of our biggest, I'd say, regrets.
My recommendation is that if you get a loan, which we're not saying that getting a loan is a bad thing. It's paying attention that it can cause you major pains down the road. Don't put the person in charge of repaying that and getting it paid. The person who does that should not be the entrepreneur in the company. Right?
It's true.
Because an entrepreneur is going to see the opportunity of that cash. And somebody who is more conservative is going to look like, no, this is a liability. I want to get this paid off.
Exactly.
Right? So that's just a quick recommendation.
All right, we have three more. Another regret, hires. We've talked about how to hire, who to hire, when to hire in previous podcasts. We've talked about regrets from hiring, so we're not going to cover a lot of that. But I think the biggest regret and that I see from other contractors as well as ourselves in our past history is when you are a one-man show, when you're a two-man, three-man show, when you're out running jobs. I'm on job sites every single day. I'm throwing paint. I'm putting up trim. I'm doing everything. If you are in that mindset as a contractor and you're out there, when I bring a helper, when I want to hire someone to help me, I hire them. I find the best guy. I'm paying him $25 an hour or whatever it is. He comes with me to the job site. A day and a half in, he just isn't cutting it. I'm looking at his paint job. I'm like, this guy's never held a paintbrush in his entire life. So I let him go, right? And so I've lost a couple $100. I got to repaint that room that he started. That's all. That's fine. I lost a couple $100, but it was a worthwhile gamble to be able to maybe bring on
it didn't cost you
another helper. So that's the mindset of contractors, right? I can bring this guy on. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, oh well. That doesn't translate to a construction company when you are hiring project managers. Project managers are long-term investments that take 2-3 months to get trained up before you even know if they're valuable or not. I mean, sure, we've had a couple that show up week 1, week 2, like this guy ain't going to work.
Right.
But 99% of our project managers, we don't know till month 2 or 3 if they're going to be long-term with us. So that being said, every single hire, and this is a concept we've said before, but people can't conceptualize it. Every hire, imagine I'm taking $20,000 in cash. I've rarely held $20K in cash. Take that $20,000, put it outside, and light it on fire. That is what you're doing when you're making that hire. Now, I'm betting that by doing that hire is going to make me $20,000 and then some.
You're going to burn that cash either way, whether they work out or not.
I'm choosing to step backwards in the goal of growing forward. And so most people hire saying, listen, I'm at 0 right now I'm at this level right now. If I hire someone, I can go to the next level. But if it doesn't work out, I'll still be at this first level.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
We operated that way for a long time.
So long. Yeah. We were like, listen, if it works out, we make more money on these jobs. If it doesn't, then we just let them go.
If we can just find the right unicorn.
I wasn't going to say yes to that job anyways, right? Like I couldn't handle that job. So if I hire him, at least I'm having a shot at it.
Yeah.
And the problem is those hires who with that mindset, who we don't vet, who it's more, this is convenient for me, those hires cost me money because not only am I paying them a salary and they're not making money on this job, but they're ruining the hardwoods. They're not painting the house right. They're mismanaging the crews and promising them stuff. They're pissing off my clients who are then going and giving me 1-star reviews. They are literally...
Which the domino effect of that is intangible.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't know how much I lost because of that bad review.
It is a different hire than when you're a contractor out running jobs and hiring help or hiring labor. Totally different hire. Biggest mistake is that you're making the exact same hire the exact same way, and it's absolutely murdering your finances as a company.
Right.
So that would be my number one. The reality of lighting $20,000 on fire and saying, I am going to Vegas. I'm putting $20,000 on Kyle.
Right.
That he's going to work out in my company. And if he does work out, great, I'm going to get that money back. And if he doesn't, I'm losing that. If you have that mentality when you're hiring someone, you're going to think differently than, well, this guy seems really good and he can take on some stuff that's on my shoulders, so this is easy.
Right.
So that would be my biggest thing with hiring.
When it comes to hiring, if I were going to say one of my regrets is I hired my very first hire. I hired a friend, somebody that I had been friends with before. We had, hung out. It wasn't just like loose acquaintances. We were friends. We'd done life together.
Yeah.
We'd officiated a wedding together, right? We were pretty close. And I hired him as my very first hire. Now, originally I hired him as a crew. And I saw his work ethic and all the different stuff and said, hey, you'd be a great employee. I would not do that again. Yeah. That's not a hit against him at all. It was more about the difficulty of when there is the two different dynamics. We are friends, and then I am your boss.
Yep.
Right? And there's two different ways, two different rows that those have to run, and the friendship always crosses that line. And I recognized that early on, and I worked really hard to hold the line and make it clear that we are friends, but I'm not going to let this affect this. But he was not able to do that. Yeah. The two were enmeshed together. Yeah. And inevitably, I did things for him that I wouldn't have done to other employees that I wasn't close with. Yeah. I think that I was not able to grow to the leader that I needed to be just because I didn't have to. There wasn't leadership needed with him. Yeah. We were just friends, right? So that was one that I would say it seemed like a no-brainer at the time because I knew his character. Yeah. I knew his work ethic. But what I didn't do is at the beginning, I didn't set up, similar to the structure and setting up a company, I didn't set up very, very clear guidelines of these are the expectations of you that I, as your boss, am going to hold you accountable to. Yep. And if we need to have a friend conversation, we can do that afterwards, but that's not going to affect us.
Well, and a business relationship, a boss-employee relationship, is a totally different relationship than a friendship.
It has to be rigid.
Well, there's rigidity in our relationship as a boss and employee because I want you, and this is capitalism at its ugliest. Yeah. I need to look out for my best interest, and you need to look out for your best interest. And if those line up with each other, then we should work together and you should be a part of this company. But as soon as my interests are being sacrificed for your interest, we can't work together anymore. Right. And so that is a business relationship where it's like, listen, if this is the best for you and it's the best for me, we should do this. Right. And at any time that this isn't the best for you, even if it's great for me, I don't want you here because you're going to stop giving your all. You're going to stop caring. You're going to stop carrying this as ownership of in the company. So For me, in a business relationship, I want you to be selfish. I want you to look out for your best needs, and I want to look out for my best needs. And I want you to care about my needs, but don't put my needs over yours. And you need to know I care about your needs. I really care about what you need, but I can't put yours over mine. Now, in friendship, it's different. In friendship, it's, listen, there are times that it's going to be all about you in this relationship, and there's times it's going to be all about me. Sometimes I need you to carry my load. Sometimes you need to carry my load. And I need you to self-sacrifice to help me at times. And I need to self-sacrifice to help you. And there's this flexibility in that relationship where in business it's rigid.
Can't exist in business.
It can't exist first. Once you're used to being flexible and then you say, hey, we need to tighten things up. Then it's like, well, that feels very selfish and this isn't who I thought you were. Right. But for us, we started out as a business relationship. I knew you from forever ago. Your dad was my baseball coach, but we had never hung out. Right. And so you came, we met, we talked, and we set up these tight parameters. And from there, we can have this really good friendship that comes out of it because it's like, listen, which hat are we going to wear right now? And we both understand we're both mature enough to say, I want you to look out for your best interests, and if they don't line up with ours, let's help each other out of this relationship. Right. And so I think that's a good point. Those type of hires, the friendship first hire, the brother-in-law, the cousin, whatever that is.
I mean, I've watched it time and time again with the guys that I coach. I've seen them bring in family members or friends or people, bring in friends as a partner.
It's so much more difficult.
But there's a lot of difficulty there. And I wouldn't do it again because there's something really valuable at risk. Right? If there's not a high level of maturity on both sides and something goes wrong on the business side, there's a relationship that's gone. Right? And it's just never going to be recovered. So anyways, I that's just one of mine in that area.
So number 4 on our list is how we would deal with clients differently.
Did you break a chair over there?
I rolled over my cord. How we used to interact with clients versus how we interact now. This is a huge one, and this is what a lot of guys come to us for coaching for because our client engagement agreement solves 99% of this issue. So what we used to do and what we see contractors doing wrong all the time, and what I would change if I'm setting the company up, is that we let our clients set the bar as to how good of treatment they're going to get from us, right? We're going to give them a good kitchen either way. We're not going to skimp on materials and lie to them and not do the right thing. But the way we treated them, the way we communicated, the way we advocated, the way we led on the job site, all of that was determined by how good or annoying the client was.
If the client just was kind of ho-hum and wasn't communicating and wasn't reaching out and asking questions or whatever, we just let it lie. Let us get out of my way. I'm just going to do my job. I'm not going to interact. Just be quiet. Let's just go get the thing done. But if we had another client that was really pissing and moaning, what's going on? We would lean in and, okay, here's your communication. Here's your thing. Right? But it was all dictated by the client. We had our standards. Like you said, we weren't giving crappy product away. But the way that the job functioned from start to finish was very different depending on the client.
So if you ask almost any person that we work with or anyone listening to this podcast, are you a man of character? Are you a woman of character? Do you have character?
No.
No one's going to say no. Everyone says yes, right? Here's the harder question. Do you do your job to do the minimum amount of work that your client or boss or whoever you're working for, that person, I'm going to do the minimum amount of work to get that paycheck to get by. To me, that's not having character. Now, that's a whole nother conversation, but that is how we ran our company. What's the least amount I can do to still get the same amount of money out of this person? How do I separate this person from their cash so I can take it and do the least amount of work I can. Right. And so every single time that someone experienced us, one client will love us, one client couldn't stand us. And as soon as they couldn't stand us, I'd drop my bar and say, how do I get my money and get out of here? Right. As soon as there's that tension. So the reactive to our clients, letting our clients set the bar that we're going to hit, and either we hit it or we don't, they're either going to like us or they won't, but either way I'm going to get my money, is the standard construction mindset that we have changed. So now the client engagement agreement, how we do things is setting the bar as to this is the bar you can expect. Don't expect more.
Right.
Don't expect less. This is what you should expect, client. Is that okay with you? Can you see that and understand it and say, this is exactly what I want? Then great. Then we can work together. But we're going to give you this standard of product as a renovation.
But no matter who you are, that is how we operate.
Yep.
Every single job runs this way.
Yep.
Right?
I think that was our biggest. The other regret, I think, would be we put all of our eggs in one basket. We had a couple large clients that were giving us, one giving us over $1 million a year in renovations. And so we were like, let's chase after this person and do whatever this client wants us to do to keep getting their jobs.
There was a 2 or 3 year period that they were somewhere between 75 and 90% of all the business we were doing.
Yeah.
Which is, they were giving us a lot of freaking work, which was great.
Yeah.
But if they made one corporate decision, we would have been out of business.
And I think the smart thing we did was we saw that, and I was like, okay, Jared, you run those jobs. I'm stepping out of that client's relationship, and I'm going to start growing. And our goal by the end of the year is get them to 50%.
Yep.
Right. Not lower them, but don't when we have capacity, don't let them fill it. Yep. Let's go find someone else.
Well, I think we were literally at like 95%.
Yeah.
And we had our annual retreat, and we said, all right, let's scoot that down. That's when we got to the 75, and the year after that, it was a 50-50 balance, and we were good with that.
Yeah, and that was a goal we set on that retreat, where it's like, if something went wrong, what would crash our company?
Well, and
this one customer can have one decision and say, we're going to in-house all our work, and now we have zero clients.
Well, and the interesting thing is that I kept the pedal on the metal.
Yeah.
I was still running and gunning and growing that side as much as I possibly could. How much can I take on? You were on the other side working to develop more and different diversified business.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we're going to make this 50%, so you need to take on less work.
Exactly.
Right? I kept running. You just grew the other side of it.
Yep, that's right. All right, so the last thing that we have that we would have done differently, we labeled distractions. So you guys probably don't connect with this if you're listening to this podcast, but I'm a bit of an entrepreneur where I get motivation. My motivating factor is forward movement and growth. And the faster and more of that I can get, the more exciting and fun my job is. And when the movement forward starts slowing down into a pace that you can then start continuing to make money and just kind of start doing the repetitive, this is how we continue this company.
Is arduous and boring.
Oh man, I'm checked out. And so one of the biggest issues that we had that I put the company in was whenever we got to a spot where we started getting that momentum, and we've got momentum, we started going, we've got some growth. Great. We're kind of flatlining now. Now that we're past the momentum, we're flatlining in not a negative way, but like we've kind of leveled out in terms of
I'd call
growth.
it a sweet spot.
Yeah,
we found a groove.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We got into a sweet spot to where the growth happened. We made it. We're there. We're at that spot. And so I'm like, well, what? Oh, it would be awesome if we added a service department. That would be really cool, right? So we started a service department. And so we spent a bunch of time and effort at that service department. How do we set it up? How do we do service calls? We got to buy vans. We got to in-house. We got to do this. We got to do
buy
this.
Buy a bunch of tools. And the whole thing.
It was not a bad decision necessarily to start a service department because we were servicing non-owner occupied rental properties, right? And so it kind of fit into what we were doing, and we could justify it up and down. All of our current clients could use the service department, right? So it wasn't a bad decision, but it was a distraction before we had the capacity to be distracted, right? We started doing different things with our time as opposed to, hey, we hit our sweet spot, let's build stability around it. Yeah. Instead, we hit our sweet spot, I got a couple extra dollars, let's double our company, right? Let's go and add something. Let's go and do this. So
the way that I kind of look at that is, my son's learning how to ride a bike, and when he first gets there and he starts pedaling for the first time, he's made that growth. He's now pedaling for the first time. The bike's doing this number, right? It's wobbling and whatever. What we did is that we did the growth. We got to the place where it was kind of plateauing and we were hitting a sweet spot where we were still wobbling. We hadn't got our feet under us. We didn't have a secure platform that we were running on, and we decided while we were still wobbling to run off a jump and see what happens.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
That's such a great metaphor. My daughter is 5, just started riding a bike, doesn't have training wheel, doesn't have anything, and she's like, "Oh, I got it." 100% of the time she rides her bike right now, she falls.
Yes.
100% of the time, she's like, "Can we go ride bikes?" And I'm like, do we want to deal with an injury right now? Like, do we have time for her to hold her for 30 minutes because she's going to scrape her knee up? Like, we know it's going to happen. But she's like, "Oh, this is awesome. Let's keep going. Let's do it. Let's go. Why don't we ride outside of the neighborhood?" I'm like, no, chill, slow it down. So that's a great metaphor because that's exactly how it got. And every single time we got to a spot where, great, now we're riding a bike. This is what we've been trying to do.
Yeah.
We then added something else to it.
Yeah.
And so we listed them out, right? We had a service department. We had what we just talked about. We decided, hey, let's expand to a different city. Let's go to Charlotte. Yeah. Right? I'm running jobs, but I'm going to go spend the weekend in Charlotte and interview some people and see if we can expand there. I created an HVAC company. We do so much HVAC work and
spend a crap load of money on it.
You either get, everyone knows that with HVAC companies, you either spend a lot of money on them or you get terrible service. And we had, or it's both of those. But we never could find anyone that gave you cheap service.
So it was a no-brainer.
Yeah. So I was like, listen, let's start our own. We will automatically, I think it was like $50,000 a month worth of HVAC work we were subbing out to people. We're like, this is built-in profit right here. Let's do this. Again, not a bad idea. I took my eyes off the ball in growth and making our clients happy and taking on more clients to do this and to expand, quote unquote, because I was chasing doing something new and wanting to scratch the entrepreneur itch.
Right.
We did TV shows. We did 3 or 4 TV shows. Hey, this will be great for marketing. This will be great. They did not pay off. I think we got a little bit of work out of it, but the amount of time, effort, and money we put into being on all 5 of those TV shows, and a couple of them were for full seasons and large time commitments.
Right.
We got a couple phone calls from it, right? Yeah. We got some work, but if we would have stayed focused on growth and doubling down on what we're currently doing, we would be way further down the road by today than we are right now even.
Right.
And then I started a nonprofit. Again, not a bad thing. Shouldn't have been my focus. I flipped some homes. I did a lot of stuff as an entrepreneur that was just fun, enjoyable. I'm good at this. And why are you saying I shouldn't? We're making more money. Yeah. What's the issue? Right?
Well, and the thing is like, I think you said this, none of these things are bad things.
Correct.
They were all great opportunities,
easily. Yeah.
Justified easily, but wrong person, wrong timing, right? The timing was not good. We were still wobbly, right? We had just got to this plateau. We needed about 6 to 12 months of just running at that spot and stacking some cash and really getting good at riding our bike, right? The other thing is that you were at the helm of the ship. Mm-hmm. Your job was to steer and navigate.
Correct.
And when you're not looking at the horizon, we're going to start veering off course.
Well, and every guy thinks, I can keep driving this. I'm just going to hop over this other boat and start driving it. But I'll be right back. I'm keeping my eye on the wheel. And there's only one of you. You cannot do that. You can still be in that seat. I was still the GM of this company. But there was days every single week that I did not think about this company, that I was on to my next thing.
I can think HVAC in specific. We had a person that was a shoo-in.
Yeah.
He knew everything. He wanted it. He was character, blah, 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 blah. And it tanked.
Yeah.
He did not work out, right? And when it was not working out, reputation was on the table.
So I'm out running estimates, and I don't know what an HVAC system is, how you put one in, right? I didn't know anything. I mean, I knew as much as the GC knows about HVAC systems that I can fake it in an estimate.
Well, the GC company, you had said, hey, I'll be right back. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to pop out. I'm going to do this thing, and then I'm going to come right back. Well, you pop out and you do this thing, and then it was like, I've got a fire over here that's going to take me 5 days to get done. Right? So that's the big thing is like none of those things by themselves are bad things or were bad ideas. Choosing the right time and making sure you're in the right position, which leads us to the last venture.
We've done 2 ventures since then, right? We've done 2 different things that were entrepreneurial, going after things. Mm-hmm. Number 1, we started ProServe Alliance. And to do that, I wanted to do. I said, okay, we've got a really good system, we're a really good company, really good processes and procedures built around this company, and we've got guys coming to us saying, hey, how did you do that? How do we do that? I want to emulate what you guys have done. Can you show us how to do it? And it was like, yeah, that felt more enjoyable to me than going to run estimates and going to run renovations. So I was like, that would be a really fun thing. But pause. I can't take my eyes off the ball.
Learning from past experience.
I can't take my eyes off the ball. So what did we do? We made a game plan over a year to move James into the GM role.
Did you hear that? He was a game plan over a year.
Uh-huh.
It took time, right? It wasn't like,
right.
I'm going to put this guy in this place and go. It was like,
Yep.
you know what? This is important. I want to make this happen, but I need to do it the right way. And it's going to take some time to make the transition.
Well, and not only time, it takes money. Because for me to put someone on my job, they need the money I'm taking for that job.
Right.
But I still need to. My new venture isn't paying me yet.
Right.
So how do we do that? So you got to get to a financial spot where I can cut my paycheck in half and be okay, or we have enough money here to take on a new large paycheck for someone to run this company.
Right.
And so that is part of the year planning, right? We need to get to a spot where we can afford this.
Yep.
What milestones do we need to hit financially to where we could afford me leaving and still taking money out of that company?
Yep.
And there's all sorts of thoughts about that. But we brought James in. He took over as GM. I got out. And so now my responsibilities is to meet with my GM once every couple of weeks and look at 30,000-foot view of the company and coach him, right? And so I'm more of a coach to him. I mean, I coach him as much as we coach any other contractor in Alliance at this point. So it's one of those things of putting him in the place. The other venture we did is we expanded to a different city. That was under James, but I came in, helped with it, negotiated it, worked it out. We were purchasing another company in a different city and worked it out. But again, for James to do that internally for us to expand, we moved one of our project managers, our senior project manager has been here forever, into head of construction over Atlanta.
Yeah.
So we moved someone into the seat in Atlanta to keep their eye on the ball here in Atlanta for our construction company, to where he is ground level. I know what's going on. I'm pursuing growth. I'm making sure our clients are happy. We're getting new clients, and our employees and company is a great company.
Right.
That way, James can now expand from just being a GM to I'm over Atlanta from 30,000-foot view, and I'm over our new city from a 30,000-foot view, and I can manage both. So again, planning a year at least, taking the time, figuring out the finances.
Well, and that's the big difference that I would say between the ones we listed before and those two. Is that the ones before were reactive.
Yep.
There was an opportunity, there was a thought, there was a lull, there was a whatever, and the reaction was, I'm going to do that thing, or this opportunity, so we're going to do that thing, right? And it was all reactive.
I found a super cheap house, I can flip it real quick, right?
Yep. And the other way around, the other two were, all right, this is what we're doing. We're going to be proactive about it. What needs to happen? What are the pitfalls? Where are the things where if we do this, what's going to happen? Let's put some safeguards in place. Let's stack a little bit of cash. Let's do right. And all of that stuff. It doesn't mean that those ventures, just because we did that they would be successful.
Yeah.
They could have been a failed venture just like any one of these, but the cost was less.
Yeah.
Because it didn't put the risk of the other company and other employees at risk.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
So
we are covering all these things because we have made almost every mistake that a contractor can make.
A lot of them.
We have done a lot of stupid things, and I think what we've done from that is we don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
We've learned from it, we've written it down, and we've built processes around those mistakes to where as we're patching holes in the boat, the holes get smaller and smaller and more minor and unimportant because we've patched all the big holes.
Right.
And so now we're still developing, we're still continuing that growth, but we're patching small holes, not giant size gashes in the ship that are going to sink us. So what we do in Alliance and what we do with contractors is give them this information. We are a resource to help them when they're making these decisions. We've got a 280-point checklist. We call it our growth path checklist. And it is every step from getting your filing for
your tax ID number,
ID number, getting your bank account set up. How do you do this? Who's signing on this? Operating agreement. This is your client engagement from the beginning all the way through. How to hire. Have you done this? Have you thought about this? You're not ready to hire until you prep with these 7 things. You got to do this, this, and this.
When do you need an office manager? When do you need a head of department?
And a lot of it is your next phase that you're going to move into. You're going to want a project manager or a office manager. So right now, let's start prepping for that hire in 6 to 12 months, right?
Well, I mean, there's probably two-thirds of stage 2 in our process that is about just being in stage 2.
Yep.
But then the last third is prepping for where you're going, the proactive movement. I want to go there, so I need to get these things done to be able to get there.
Yep. So we would like to invite anyone listening to this. If you are a company that wants to learn and hear some of more of the stuff in depth and be able to take it, tweak it, and push it into your company to ensure that your company is being built right, we love to talk to you and give you some of the stuff.
Use our failure for your success.
Please, we've got some one day to win events that are coming up that we'd love to invite you guys to. But we'd love to have a phone call or a Zoom with you as well. We do free blueprinting occasionally here and there for companies where we'll sit down with them and kind of help them think through some of that stuff. It's just fun for us. So, again, if you'd like to hear that stuff, we'd love to hear from you. But these are our experiences. If we could start over, if we could build a company from the beginning, this is the main things that we would learn from when we're first starting to structure it.
A lot of those cost us the most.
Yeah, this is a very expensive list of mistakes.
Yeah.
But we're happy that we've made it through each of these because any one of these could have taken us down.
For sure. Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening, and we're going to see you next week.
See you next time.
Bye.